Let's talk about NXT from December the 2nd. But we're not going to talk about NXT from December the 2nd because not much happened on that show. We will be, however, doing a preview of Deadline. We're going to get to NXT when we get to it. In fact, we'll just mix NXT into our Deadline preview. That way, just like SmackDown. Because the go-home show, not strong. Not the strongest go-home show of all time, I must say. Must say that. Got to go on record for that. The show will be held in San Antonio, Texas, at the Boeing Center at Techport. I don't know what that means. That's a whole lot of words. They got 5 matches set for the show. Most of them thrown together at the last minute. Well, one of them is. No figures on the ticket sales yet. I'm going to guess it's somewhere between 500 and 3,000. I'm going to go on the lower end, maybe a 1,500. I don't know how big this building is. I don't expect it to be a whole lot of people. This event is the last NXT event of the year. And it's coming on a day after TNA's final resolution. So TNA is going to have a pay-per-view the day before. NXT the next day. Ought to be interesting. So let's get into it, man. It was announced on NXT December the 2nd that Ricky Saints versus Oba Femi is going to be the opening match for the title, the NXT Championship, which basically guarantees that Ricky Starks is going to win this match. They had a couple of segments. They had a contract signing, which I don't feel like the need to go over contract signings. There's nothing that happened, except each guy talked about winning. Oba Femi also got in the face of Dion Lennox, who wanted to remind Oba Femi of his growth over the last year or so since he's joined Dark State, which I thought was a nice segment. Setting up that perhaps they could do something even after this. But there's no way Oba Femi is winning this match. He just doesn't need to win. So I guess Oba Femi can, just like Trick Williams, can go and wait in catering until Triple H decides he's going to do something with somebody, which is likely in March at some point in time. So Ricky Starks is going to be the guy going forward. So I'm going to go there with that. The next match was thrown together at the last minute, but kind of, sort of, Ethan Page versus Mr. Iguana for the NXT North American Championship. They've been having issues on AAA TV. They had a mixed tag team match on AAA, which kind of bled into this, as they needed to put Ethan Page on the show. Also, there was a nice little nod that Ethan Page did to being upset about not being picked by John Cena. It really fits his character, and he really should have made a bigger deal out of it. You know, a lot of people should have made a bigger deal about not being picked by John Cena, but okay, it fits Ethan Page's character. He thought he was going to get the night off. Turns out, no. Ava had an idea that he hadn't defended his North American title in a while, so she picked an opponent who just happened to be stealing his car. Yes, Mr. Iguana stole Ethan Page's car. Mr. Iguana is not about to win the NXT North American title. It's just not going to happen. Why not have Mr. Iguana wrestle on the show? I mean, this is the second time in 2 months, I think. I think they did it last event, where they basically took Mr. Iguana at the very last minute and threw him on the show. The very last minute. It's like the guy works for you. You can bring him in and, build storylines around him. You don't have to, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, dump the guy on the card. But Mr. Iguana is not going to win. Ethan Page is going to win this match. The 2 Iron Survivor challenges. Let's go with the women first. The Women's Iron Survivor Challenge. Sol Ruka, Lola Vice, Kalani Jordan, Jordan Grace, and Kendall Gray. They did a Iron Survivor Summit for the women. It's not worth talking about. It was interrupted by Fatal Influence and ended up in a brawl, of course. The brawl was then sectioned off into a 6-woman tag where Fatal Influence ended up wrestling Lola Vice, Sol Ruka, and Kendall Gray. A very fun match, to be quite honest. A weird finish, extremely weird finish when we get into that. But Sol Ruka and Zarya, they had a problem earlier in the night. Sol Ruka had let Ethan Page get in her ear last week, so she didn't show up for Zarya's match. And she tried to apologize to Zarya tonight, but all the other girls were kind of like, whatever on this Zarya tip. Who really cares, right? So in this match, Sol Ruka gets the pin. She pins JC Jane, which of course is a foreshadowing of her winning the match, right? But I didn't like the finish because it feels like JC Jane jumped into the Soul Snatcher rather than being caught by the Soul Snatcher. It was almost like she was sliding into home base. Like she tripped over nothing just to take this finish. So I didn't like that part. I think Sol Ruka, jumped a little too early, and JC Jane had to compensate. Anyway, Sol Ruka got the pin. Her and her friends, are her new friends, they're celebrating the victory. Out of nowhere, Zarya tries to spear Sol Ruka. She missed and speared Kendall Gray. Then Sol Ruka and Zarya got into a shoving match. And let me tell you that this thing escalated very quickly. Very, very, very quickly. They went from, Zarya being disappointed to her trying to take Sol Ruka out. I wonder how in the world are they going to justify this? There's got to be some justification for it, right? But, they set up that Sol Ruka is going to win because she pinned JC Jane. And that's naturally where the story would go. But then they also teased that Zarya could cost Sol Ruka the match. And that jealousy and that anger and that bitterness could be the reason Sol doesn't win. There's a story there between Jordynne Grace and Kalani Jordan. They have history. Obviously, Kalani Jordan just lost her title. So she's not happy, and Jordynne Grace and her have been having problems even before she lost that title. Lola Vice is just kind of there, dancing and shaking her hips, which nobody is mad at. But she just got not much going on. And Kendall Gray is the prodigy. She's going out there really being impressive. She was really good in that 6-woman tag, too. I don't think she has a chance in hell of winning. She also has to defend her title on Evolve, which is pretty much already taped, if I'm guessing. I think going into 2026, which is when the championship match will be had at the first NXT show, which I believe they call it New Year's Evil, I truly believe that they're going to go with Sol Ruka. I think Sol Ruka winning the match is probably the best option because it seems like they've been telling this story and avoiding Sol Ruka losing matches, which they would only do if they had big plans for her. So I'm going to go with Sol Ruka wins. As a second choice, I would not be surprised if Lola Vice won, but something tells me that Sol Ruka on her own finally is going to be something special. I can't wait to see. I'm glad this thing with Zarya is finally coming apart. Anybody who's been listening to my NXT takes for a long time knows how much I hate this partnership. And I don't think it's been doing Zarya any good. So I really want the best for Sol Ruka. I want the best for Zarya too, but this tag team is not good for either one of them. It's time for growth and change. And I'm glad to see both of them moving on, for God's sakes. All right, next, Tatum Paxley versus Izzy Dame, singles match. They had a promo segment for Izzy Dame, who I think did a really good job in her performance. Her content was kind of generic and cookie cutter it was a typical You People promo, followed by her taking credit for all of Tatum Paxley's success, saying that she gave Tatum Paxley confidence, she gave her a voice, she cared for her, but Paxley was selfish and stubborn, and that she thought that the culling wasn't good enough for her. And that Paxley, of all this time she's been in NXT, the only time she became successful is when she was under Izzy Dame's wing. Odd thing, because Izzy Dame has less experience than Tatum Paxley. But I did like the earlier part of the promo where she said that Tatum Paxley seemed to think that her guidance was a suggestion. Like she was in control of Paxley, and she felt like she should have been in control of Paxley. And I like that angle. That's the angle they should have gone with, where Paxley didn't get it. She was on a leash, and she didn't understand that part. So now she had to yank the leash. And I like that element of it. And Tatum Paxley popped up on the screen, said that what Izzy took from her was the only thing she's ever wanted, which was something steady. She took away her friendship. She took away the championship that she worked so hard for. And then she said she's going to make Izzy feel her pain. He did the whole thing where Tatum Paxley had the makeup smeared on her face with the tears and everything. It was strong. I think this match probably should have a no disqualification element to it or something like that, like a street fight element to it. It's probably a little too soon for that, so I'll accept it as a singles match. I think Tatum needs to win this, but I could see why you would have Izzy Dame win. You could probably have Izzy Dame win by utilizing that guy and Nico Vance as guys who are distractions. They distract the ref. They pull Tatum Paxley's leg. All that sort of stuff. It might be a nice time to introduce another girl to put with Izzy Dame as a more loyal stooge for Izzy Dame. I've heard stories that they might actually look into bringing in a couple of guys to be with Tatum Paxley. So this seems like it might be a nice springboard for that. That's if they're going to bring in a couple of guys, or maybe even find a couple of guys on the roster already that they could use to beef up this feud and make it a trios thing where Tatum's got two guys and Izzy's got two guys, and they could run that for a little bit. But I'm going to pick Izzy Dame to win, even though I probably shouldn't. I'm going to pick Izzy Dame to win because I think that Izzy Dame, from what I saw on this show, she has the potential to be a good lead heel for the women's division in NXT. And JC Jane can't be there forever. And Fatal Influence can't be there forever. And nobody else is really ready. Kalani Jordan, she got a great reaction in terms of, her promo segment where she got basically Dominic Mysterio boos. But there were sections of Izzy Dame's promo that were muted because the crowd was yelling at her and they were yelling all sorts of nonsense at her. So there were sections of her promo that was actually muted. And I think that Izzy Dame as a character and as a personality, once they've really nailed what that personality is, can be the lead female heel on the roster going forward. And I think part of getting her to that level is she has to win. She's got to win sometimes. So I'm going to give her the win here. I think Izzy Dame's going to win. All right. The main event, the Men's Iron Survivor Challenge. Javon Evans versus Leon Slater versus Joe Hendry versus Dion Lennox versus Miles Bourne. So in terms of stories, Leon Slater doesn't have one. He's just Javon Evans' buddy who happened to be in the match and get picked by John Cena. Joe Hendry has been teaming with Thea Hale. He was in Thea Hale's corner when she wrestled and defeated Ariana Grace earlier in the night. There wasn't much to that. Ariana Grace doesn't really do much wrestling. She's mostly a personality. Dion Lennox had his showdown with Obafemi. You could do that without the title, and you could do that just on Dion Lennox is more comfortable and more confident now. Dion Lennox also is so confident that he's going to win this match that he gave away his tag team championship to one of his buddies, the Sugar Man. So Sugar Man is now officially the tag team champion. So Dion Lennox is feeling very comfortable that he's going to win this match. Shawn Michaels and or Triple H and or whoever else is involved is brain dead if Dark State is anywhere near the main event. You are brain dead if Dark State is near the main event, okay? Miles Bourne's just happy to be there. He really doesn't serve a purpose. He really doesn't serve any purpose. Javon Evans, they did a nice little segment between him and Ricky Starks where they were friendly jabbing at each other. You know, Ricky making fun of them for losing 4 or 5 times to Obafemi. Javon Evans making fun of Ricky Starks for not wrestling at Madison Square Garden. You know, I think Javon Evans is probably the best option you got in terms of a guy you can go with that the fans won't puke on. And in terms of building a match people might actually want to see, I think that Javon Evans is your best choice. Miles Bourne, he's just happy to be there, man. Now, on the show, they did an 8-man tag. Dark State, which features Dion Lennox, of course, versus Javon Evans, Leon Slater, Joe Hendry, and Miles Bourne. And then they decided to do a twist to that where the winner got to pick his own spot in the Iron Survivor Challenge. So if Dark State won, then Dion Lennox would get to choose his spot. And if the other team won, then the person who got the pin would get to choose his spot. And Miles Bourne got the pin. So that's Miles Bourne's story going into the match, is that he gets to make his own decision. He's a captain of his own ship. But I don't think it matters. Miles Bourne is not winning. All right? He's not winning. They would be brain dead if Miles Bourne wins too, because he's a plain Jane character. They beat Trick Williams. They had Miles Bourne beat Trick Williams, so maybe they go in the Miles Bourne direction. But I don't see it. I don't see how you could justify elevating Miles Bourne so far up the card with so little substance to his character, so little substance to what he does. He needs more. Okay? He needs a damn character is what he needs. Right now his gimmick is that he's deaf and he talks weird. Like that's the entirety of his character. We need to see a little bit more spice or something from Miles Bourne. We can't just do this. Smart money would say give it to Javon Evans and just do Javon Evans versus Ricky Starks. Something tells me though that they might want to go with Joe Hendry. So I'm going to go with Joe Hendry. I think Joe Hendry winning will be a nice surprise. I think getting his year started off right. Him teaming up with Thea Hill was fine. It's cute. But I don't think that's what he's meant to do in NXT. I think pushing him up the card, he's a guy I could see wrestling Obafemi and winning. He's a guy I could see wrestling Trick Williams and winning. He's a guy I could see beating Ricky Starks, even though I don't think he will. So I'm going to go with Joe Hendry to win this match. And I don't know. I fully expect that there's going to be people who are going to have a meltdown if Javon Evans doesn't win. And I fully expect that, and that ought to be fun. But I don't know how many times you can put Javon Evans in that spot and then he's not going to win. I'm just not sure how many times you can do that. So probably do something where he ends up getting written out of the show. Maybe he gets attacked by Dark State, which I know everybody hates, but something. All right, so that's what I got. I got Ricky Starks defeating Obafemi. I got Ethan Page defeating Mr. Iguana. I got Sol Ruka winning the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge. AZ Dame defeating Tatum Paxley and Joe Hendry to win the Men's Iron Survivor Challenge. Now, things that happened on NXT that was not relevant to Deadline, there were many things. There was an OTM match, which tells you that Shawn Michaels was out of ideas. Whenever OTM is on the show, Shawn does not have any ideas. So they were on the show. They wrestled Chase University and beat them. Josh Briggs defeated Tavion Heights. This match was an attempt at something interesting because Tavion Heights smashed Josh Briggs through the barricade. Pause. But that's what happened. I'm only giving you the facts, pal. And then they did a Shiloh Hill promo. And I don't get this guy's character. I don't know what his gimmick is. I don't get it. He's oversharing on social media, talking to the camera about things that are boring and pointless. Now he's talking about hypothermia and getting chased by wolves. Once again, mentioned that he was on LFG. I just don't get this character. I think this guy would have been better off just being brought on TV with the missing tooth and some sort of gimmick, like he's a hillbilly or something. I don't know. But him sitting at this computer, dropping hints about stuff, and I'm like, I'm not catching it because he's there. He's just sitting there talking. And I'm like, God, oh my Lord. I don't care. Like, I don't watch LFG. He's not charming enough. He's not charming. He's not menacing. He's not funny. He just is a weird looking, I call him mini Bray Wyatt. That's what he looks like. He looks like Bray Wyatt. And it's disconcerting to me. I want this guy to do something. I appreciate that they're trying to get over his personality, but I don't know what the personality is. I don't know what the character is. What the fuck is this? Why is this happening? So Shiloh Hill, go away. Go away, go do something else. All right, NXT ought to be fun. Hopefully I'll make some nachos or something for it. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Skin tone, so why attach yourself and piggyback the wealth you didn't earn or lack yourself? I'm telling you to own up to your own success and failures. It's a reason why these sleazy guys